Story 1. Most people trade time for money by working 40 to 60 hours a week. If you want to retire now on that basis, it is a good deal. All the time not spent working allows you to live and travel. Story 2. Absolutely. 10 years shorter life, but I could spend all the remaining years doing whatever I wanted instead of wasting them on work. I would gain far more time than I would lose. Story 3. I probably only have 20 years left. I'm old, and I don't have anything left to do that requires a lot of money. I have 3 beautiful children. I have a wife who is pretty awesome. My health is good. I drive a cheap Kia and I don't need a better car. I can buy nice ingredients and make dinners for my family. I can afford Netflix and Hulu at the same time. I also have YouTube. That's plenty to watch. I also have a Spotify account, so the music I can access daily is more than what a billionaire could access in the year I was born. My phone is a Google Pixel. It is really cheap but really awesome. I can ask it things and it gives me answers like magic. My doctor and my dentist are both great. I don't have any pain. Costco is amazing. I can get great deals on fruit and vegetables that I like. All in all, life is amazing. What am I going to do with $20 million? Probably some hookers and cocaine, but I did that when I was in my 20s in the Navy, and it was pretty great. Now I'm too old. I probably die. Story 4. Not sure how it would work out. I am poor and have health issues. If I were $20 million richer, it might extend my life so that I would still have a gain in years. Story 5. No guarantee you will make it to a specific age. Accidents happen. Take the deal. At worst, you die before you are infirmed by old age. 20 million means that you can live every day to the fullest, which is significantly better than living 10 years in constant struggle. Story 6. Maybe not. I think if I asked my wife or daughter the question, they would want me to live the extra 10 years. I know if the tables were turned and my wife said, $20 million or 10 years off my life, I would not choose the money. Story 7. I will lose more than 10 years due to being unable to afford medical care or other necessities. Story 8. I wouldn't. I much prefer my time with family and friends to anything money has ever gotten me. I'm also very interested to see what happens in the future. The main reason I'd want money is simply to not have to work. Maybe I'd save more than 10 years of time by not working, but honestly, during that time my friends and family are working or in school. I work normal hours. When I once had 6 months off work and school, it was nice most of the time, but no one was ever available during the day anyway. That said, if I could have $20 million and not lose years of my life, it would obviously be insane not to take it. It would immediately make my life much easier. Story 9. Definitely yes, living for 50 to 60 years is enough. Having that large amount of money will surely secure your family's future as long as it is managed properly. All you can think of while living is traveling or doing whatever you want to do before passing. Story 10. Yes, that will take care of 10 people for their entire lives. I think my 10 years is worth that. Story 11. Hell yes. The people in my family live incredibly long lives, with the majority of them well into their 90s. I have seen what the last 10 years are like, and I do not want them. Plus, I receive $20 million. Story 12. No. I do not know when I will die, and 10 years could be any day now. I am currently 8 years younger than when my father died. Story 13. Absolutely. I do not plan to have children, so I can travel with my significant other around the world at our leisure. If done correctly, we would never have to work again. I will take that over spending the end of my life as a retail worker because our society has prevented millennials from being able to retire properly. Story 14. Financial stress is already affecting my life, so why not live a shorter life that is relatively stress-free? Story 15. Outside of the fact that you have no idea how much time you have left, which we often take for granted, look at the super rich. They spend enormous amounts of money trying to hold on to life by any means possible. Shouldn't that be an indicator of what holds greater value? Story 16. Yes, sure would. It would be nice to not have to work for the rest of my life, even if my life is going to be cut short. Not having to work anymore would remove a lot of mental stress. My health would likely improve. Potentially adding years to my life by having less to deal with that is ruining it. I think it would balance out. Story 17. I would take it 100%. It is simple math. Currently, I work 40 to 45 hours per week and drive an additional 10 to 12 hours. So, let's say 50 hours every week goes to work. With $20 million, I could easily take 75% and put it into index funds, and it would grow enough for me to be comfortable without working my whole life. So, taking away work for the rest of my life, I am gaining 50 hours per week. In 10 years, the $20 million pays for itself, in my opinion. Plus, not having to work probably extends my life by 10 years anyway, so the net difference is zero. Without the stress of work, I would have lived much longer in the original timeline. Yes, it is like Russian roulette if I died in a car crash 5 years from now in the original timeline. But I would rather have my will set up and leave my loved ones with $20 million, dying instantly, than feel the pain of the car crash and leave them nothing. Story 18. That is more than $200 per hour, spread over 87,600 hours. Since the average workweek for Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development countries is 36 hours, that equals about 45 years under a normal workload. Since I have yet to work, I can definitely sacrifice the time that average people spend working their whole lives and earn more than 200 times the minimum salary. It is like skipping all the time spent working, but still keeping the best years for myself and earning much more than I ever would in my life. Any counter-arguments? Story 19. I did the math. If you are not already a millionaire, that is a deal. I do not know if this was on purpose, but 10 years is more or less the amount of time a person has to work from age 25 to 65. 10 hours per day, 5 days a week, 4 weeks a month. 11 months a year equals 2,200 hours per year. 10 hours because I counted travel and lunch, 11 months because I counted holidays and such. 2,200 hours times 40 years equals 88,000 hours in 40 years. 88,000 divided by 24 hours times 365 days equals 10.04 years. So yes, it is a great deal. I lose nothing and gain infinite quality of time. Story 20. I could do a lot for my daughters with that money, so yes, probably. Those last few years have been difficult anyway. Story 21. That's a no-brainer deal immediately. I would rather live comfortably for a decade less than live in utter poverty working hard for an extra decade. Story 22. If I do that, do I age faster or do I simply die younger? If I simply die younger, then I do not see the downside. I would cut off the worst years of my life to live better in the best years of my remaining life. Story 23. In a heartbeat. $20 million will provide more than 10 years of extra life, barring accidents, simply by enabling access to medical care as issues arise, eating healthier, having time to exercise, and so on. Story 24. 100%. 10 years off my life to know my family will be taken care of for the rest of theirs, any day of the week. Story 25. To quote my grandfather regarding hot dogs, they say those things are no good for you, and they take years off your life. But they take those years off the end of your life, and those are the ones you really do not want anyway. Story 26. So, that $20 million would drastically improve the remainder of my life and my family's life, so I think I would probably do it. Maybe I would give 5 years for $10 million. I do not really even need that, honestly. I am not egotistical enough to be greedy. I just want a decent amount to live on and give my son some inheritance. Story 27. I would give 10 years of my life to my dog. Story 28. Seriously, the comments on this are inappropriate. You all have some misplaced priorities. Story 29. No, I earnestly don't want a lot in life. I've lived most of my life broke. I have wasted enough time to be comfortable as I am now. Do I get 20 million for a big house that will impress people I stopped caring about when I was young? Better food I shouldn't eat because it is unhealthy? Shinier metal products that do the same thing as the cheap stuff. I drive a cheap but effective car, economical and long-lasting. People act like it is goofy that I don't care about having a better one. I don't make payments on it. Story 30. If I only have 9 years to live and I take the deal, do I still get $20 million and does it go to my next of kin? If yes, then I am definitely taking the deal. If no, then I am still probably taking the deal because it is unlikely I am going to pass shortly, but later on I might not. Story 31. What is 10 years to someone who will live until the heat death of the universe using increasingly sophisticated medical advances? Of course, I will probably feel differently when death comes to collect in 10 to the power of 106 years. Story 32. Can you tell me when that is? I am currently 60. What if the 10-year cutoff is 62? Story 33. Upon the recent saddening news that my coworker's son died of a sudden illness at age 31, I will not be taking this offer. I am 25, and it shocks me to think that you can live normally and then be dead in less than 4 weeks. It is not that I did not acknowledge accidents before, but a healthy man just entering his prime age dying so suddenly is so unfair. There are people harming their health with hundreds of bottles and needles who still live into their 60s and 70s. Story 34. I would have said yes 20 years ago, but I was not middle-aged and did not have children then. I do not have $20 million, but my wife and I both have good jobs and live comfortably enough. At this point, I'm doing everything I can to maximize my health to spend as much time as possible with my children. I would rather have an extra 10 years with them than $20 million. Story 35. If I receive $20 million immediately, I will live to 90 years or older. Absolutely. Story 36. Yes. Retire, travel, and enjoy life to the absolute fullest starting immediately, or work at a job for another 25 plus years, waiting for the occasional vacation, and hoping not to be too old and weak to enjoy retirement. Story 37. It will be tragic when they take the 10-year tax and you die immediately. Story 38. No way. I am 53. I would like to think I will make it another 30 years, but I am not willing to take that risk. Story 39. Yes, you don't truly live until you are free from the daily struggle to survive. Smart people who save get to experience this when they retire, but even then, it means they don't get to live fully until they are in their 60s or 70s. I want to live now. I want to not be afraid of losing my job, having medical issues or car problems, and still be able to pay my mortgage and put food on my table. Story 40. 100%. I take 20 million today, and I have to work the next 20 years. Story 41. Right now, I am more than 10 years away from being able to retire. I could immediately start having an awesome life of travel and adventure. So yes, absolutely yes. Story 42. Yes. I would spend my money on international private healthcare for all the people I love for as long as I am alive to make sure we are all as healthy as possible for as long as possible together. Story 43. I would reduce by 1 million every year after the end of 2024. Story 44. As long as my family receives the money, I would not care if I had 10 years or less left in my life. Story 45. Well, I guess that depends on how long I was going to live. If I was going to die at 60, 50 does not give me much time. I would not even get to do the Summer Olympics in Los Angeles. But $20 million would take care of college and start a generational wealth cycle for my daughters. Dying at 70 instead of 80 might be worth that. Story 46. I have struggled with suicidal thoughts for 30 years. I feel overwhelmed, especially the week after I get paid. Story 47. No. You can earn money, you cannot earn time. Unless I had no one left to live for and did not care, then yes, for sure. Story 48. What is the trade-off? Losing the 10 worst years of your physical life in exchange for being able to retire now. I am sold. It is probably not worth it for anyone over 60. Story 49. Yes, I can finally relax, and my children will be taken care of after I pass away. Story 50. It is not impossible that 20 million adds 10 years to my life so they cancel out. I would be more active, eat better quality food, and have better medical care. Who knows? Story 51. Yes, I have no desire to get old. Existence is pain, and 20 million could do so much good for me. I could find a job that suits me and not have to worry about bills or anything. Hell, can I do it twice? Story 52. No, I would rather spend the next 26 years working and making $2 million. Those last 10 years of my life will be enjoyable in the retirement home. Story 53. 10 years have 87,660 hours, ignoring leap days. That means you get an hourly rate of approximately $228 for your time. Story 54. There is a story in the No Sleep podcast where a man trades a couple of decades of his life for something, only to realize that the cutoff would not start from the end of his life, but from the front. In other words, you end up becoming older. Story 55. I don't think you understand that you would probably gain 10 years of improved quality of life from that 20 million. Story 56. No, I am 40 and about to give birth to my first child. I tried to have a baby much earlier, but it did not work out for me that way. I want as much time with him as possible. I want to get to know him repeatedly as he grows through his own life. I want to do that alongside his father. I cannot think of anything more valuable than my time with them both. Story 57. I have already lost 9 to 12 years of my life, statistically speaking, due to diabetes. Where is my $20 million? Story 58. My wife is 8 years older than me. I would take that exchange. We would be closer in terms of time left on Earth, and I would be happy with that. Less grieving in the future, more money now, no downsides. Story 59. Lose 10 years in old age where I am broken and gain roughly 8 years of healthy age by not working, not even counting commute or overtime. Much better quality of life and only losing 2 years. Yes, I would totally take it. Story 60. Absolutely, to secure a safe financial future for my family. However, I believe the universe might play a cruel trick on me and cause my death the next day, even though I am actually due to die in 10 years and 1 day. Story 61. Of course, all these years in college, everything is gone. Story 62. 40 hours per week for 30 years equals 52.14 times 40 times 30, which is 62,568 hours. Dividing 62,568 hours by 24, and then by 365 gives 7.14 years. I have already exchanged my time for a fraction of 20 million while giving 7 years. These 7 years are taken from my waking time, which is more significant because when I work, my free time is much less. Sleep also plays a role. Story 63. It totally depends on when I am expected to die. If I am expected to die in 10 years at age 66, no. At 96, yes. Story 64. Absolutely yes. Case 1. I have more than 10 years left. In this case, I trade the last 10 years of my life, which are likely to be the most unpleasant, for retiring right now and making however long I have left financially worry-free. Case 2. I have less than or exactly 10 years left. In this case, I drop dead, but my brother and his children, my only family, receive the money and are set. Story 65. Yes. Here for a good time, not a long time. What good is all that money if I am not alive long enough for my body to stop working? Story 66. Absolutely. I am someone who never fancied getting old and wasting my 70s and 80s away in a nursing home. I would rather have $20 million, live like a king, do everything I want to do, visit every country I want to visit, and then die on my own terms. Story 67. Yes. With that fortune, I can hire an accountant to help me retire and grow my money, allowing me to enjoy a comfortable life. Story 68. Have you seen what your average last 10 years look like? I would gladly cut it off even without $20 million, so a big yes to your question. Story 69. I am nearly 70. Reducing 10 would make any money worthless. Story 70. You could take 20 and give me 10 million, and I would say yes. Story 71. Without a second thought, absolutely. There is no need to work all my life to enjoy 10 years of retirement. My whole life will be retirement and leisure. Story 72. Yes. I would make sure I am really healthy and die at 104 instead of 114. Story 73. I think for most people, work is a time sink greater than 10 years in total, and they feel it is essentially meaningless. It only adds value to their life in the form of remuneration and benefits. So why not choose a transaction that is a better bargain by the numbers? Story 74. If used wisely, a middle-aged person could probably add 10 years to their life. Quit work. Use the money and sudden free time to take up a physical but low-risk hobby. Pay for a nutritionist, personal trainer, cook, and regular health checkups. Story 75. No, I am good. I would rather work hard to earn more than that. Life is valuable and I do not want to waste mine. Story 76. No. I want to see as much of the future as possible. That is priceless. Story 77. It really depends on if I know when I am going to die. If I knew I was going to die at 90, I would take $20 million for sure and die at 80. But if I was going to die at 60 and would die at 50 if I took it, absolutely not. If I had no idea when I am going to die, then I would not risk it. Story 78. Never forget, the only thing you have on this planet is time. It is your life. I will not part with a single year of it. I have enough money. Life is not about money. Good health and real friends and family are what matter. Of course, we all need a little bit of money to get by, but a few $1,000s a month should be more than enough to live. Story 79. No amount of money is worth losing time with my daughter and partner. With that much money, I could quit working and spend all of my remaining time with them. But the way I see it, even though I don't spend every day with my parents now, it's nice knowing they are still there. They still exist. I can still call or text them for advice. If they left me 10 years early, I would miss them. Even if it meant they would leave me more money, I would not want that. I would not want to do that to my own family or miss those years with them. Story 80. I have much less money, and I am spending some to be healthier. Life is priceless. Story 81. 8-hour workdays amount to about 2,000 hours a year. After just over 4 years, you will have earned back 1 year of time spent working. In practice, it often takes less time to earn it back due to commuting, breaks at work, and the lack of freedom associated with the weekly routine. Additionally, with that amount of money, you can buy back time that you would otherwise spend on tasks like bargain hunting. Basically, if you are under about 50 years old, this ends up being a net positive both for your cash on hand and for the amount of time you have available for yourself for the rest of your life. Story 82. Of course, 10 years will be from the 1980s to the 1990s when my health is poor, and I can hardly take care of myself. Story 83. You say yes and immediately die because you have less than a year to live. Story 84. No, not unless I know how many years I would otherwise live. If it turns out I am dying at age 85 or more, then absolutely. Story 85. I am kind of old. I feel like it would be, here is your money. Then it ends. Story 86. I would need to know my expected age of death. If it is within the time frame of 75 to 80, definitely. Story 87. The last 10 years are as long as it is statistically significant and I live statistically. Story 88. Yes, I would. No doubt. My wife and I could stop working and spend more time with our daughter. With that amount of money, I could do all the things I wanted to do with my mom, dad, and daughter, things we couldn't do before because we were too poor. With proper financial management, we might even have enough left over to ensure my daughter never has to stress over money. That situation is very difficult. Story 89. I'm here for a good time, not a long time. Who's to say what your quality of life will be at that time when $20 million can guarantee it for a certain period, and if you're smart about it, continue to make you money. Story 90. No, because I do not know how long I am going to live. What if I have less than 10 years from today? Would I just die on the spot? Story 91. Yes, in exchange for 10 years, I get about 27 years of days back, so about 78 years minus 10, 68 life expectancy. Lived 23 years so far. Assuming a 63-year retirement, that is about 40 years of working, and off to 2/7 of those days anyway, not accounting for holidays. Story 92. Jesus. No. Not for that illegible writing. I need superyacht money to even consider the proposition. Story 93. No way. Maybe I would retire a few years early, likely end up with lifestyle creep and not enjoy life anymore. I do not need more money to be happy. I am not rich but live well within my means. Story 94. First, I need to know how long I will live before making this decision. If I am destined to live until 100 years old, then yes. Otherwise, no. Story 95. $20 million buys a significant amount of healthcare. I am fairly sure that for most people under 50, this would result in a net gain of life, and certainly for most people under 30. Story 96. Yes, and with my luck, I would be on my last 10 and drop dead on the spot. Sister and brother-in-law would get a lot richer that way, though. Story 97. It obviously depends on what your end date is, but my grandmother lived to 102, so yes, I would. Story 98. It depends. Do I get to know at what age I will die? It would be terrible to accept the deal and then die instantly because I was going to die in an accident in 2 years or something like that. Story 99. Yes, absolutely. You regain all that time anyway by not wasting it working. Story 100. Just mine or my children too? If both, then I am saying yes, please do it quickly. It will reduce the 13-year sentence of being attached to an abusive ex that they still have to deal with and do not want to be around. Story 101. I do not think I have 10 left. Does my wife and child get 20 million? Story 102. If I could choose any 10 years, I would do it, but otherwise, no way. Story 103. If I had a long life expectancy, yes. If I do not know how much time I have left, then no. Story 104. The ability to afford medical care would probably even things out. Story 105. Sure. Do you know how long it takes to make $20 million from zero? Story 106. No, my children would be orphans. I would rather have 10 extra years with them. Story 107. Too easy. Yes. Where you will likely get some pushback is the $2 million mark. Would you cut 10 years off for $2 million? On one hand, you can stretch that money out, but you do not have nearly the cushion of $20 million. $2 million sent to a checking account is life-changing for most, but lifestyle creep and other factors will likely affect you too. If you are 25 years old, $2 million is not enough to just quit and retire for the rest of your life. So cut off the zero and you get a much more interesting discussion. Story 108. Not at all. I like life, and generally speaking, people who earn millions seem to become bad people fairly reliably. I would like to think I would be a good influence with that money, but there is something corrupting about it, just like power. Story 109. Yes, I have a son and would like him to never worry about money. Story 110. Only if I know when I am going to die before making the decision. If I will live to be 80 and reduce to 70, sure. If I am going to reduce to the point that I will die in a year or even 5 years, then no. Story 111. No. I only have 20 or 25 years left. No way I would give up half of that, even for $20 million. Story 112. I feel I could do a lot more good with $20 million than in the last 10 years of my life. Story 113. Unfortunately, no. To begin with, I do not believe I will live that long, but I am not suicidal. I have worked very hard, both physically and mentally, growing out of poverty and trauma. I would love to take $20 million, but there are people looking up to me now. I cannot just die and have them believe that I was a multimillionaire without explanation. Story 114. The constant stress of working paycheck to paycheck and wondering if I really need to fix the check engine light or if this headache is just a tension migraine or the tumor that will bankrupt the next generation of my family has probably shaved off more than 10 years already. Story 115. Yes, to do more with my life and also to leave money for my family. Story 116. Am I losing the last 10 years or the next 10 years? I'll trade the off the back end for $20 million without stopping to think. If you are giving me $2 million now for the last 10 years, it is a no-brainer. I am instantly retired and off to a cheaper country. I have traded my 10 worst years for 30 extra years of freedom, living like a god in a tropical location. Make it $500,000, and I would probably not even need to think for more than 30 seconds. Story 117. Yes, to give the money to my children for a better life than I have had. Story 118. I could die in an hour for $20 million. It gives me enough time to put my children to bed one last time, and knowing they will be financially secure for the rest of their lives is all I need. Story 119. I would do it if it meant only another 10 years. I am already old, and that is enough money that my family would not have to work anymore. Story 120. Yes. It would provide for the care of my spouse, children, and grandchildren for years, and possibly decades, if properly defined legally. Story 121. Yes, 20 million is life-changing money, and you are not going to earn 20 million by working 10 years. Story 122. No, friend. Sorry. But also live every moment like your last. My ex-fiancé, who was extremely wealthy, died very young at 42, and he was still in the process of renovating his properties. He never got to see them fully completed. Story 123. Do I know when I am going to die before taking this deal? Could have a significant impact. Story 124. Yes, it is 10 years from a difficult part of life, and I have $20 million to enjoy it. Story 125. I am 35 years old. I do not know when I will die. I could easily take the money and already have less than 10 years. Or, like my mother, I would only get 5 years. No, I am good. Story 126. With $20 million, you could extend your life by much more than 10 years if you manage it wisely. Story 127. Yes, sign me up. Give me 10 million now and start the countdown. Story 128. What if you instantly aged by 10 years? Would that change your decision? Story 129. I don't understand these hypothetical scenarios. $20 million? Yes, without even thinking. Try asking the same question for, say, $500,000 or whatever, and some people would really have to think about it. Story 130. I would ensure my family is secure. In 5 years, they will be the best. Story 131. I feel that confirming it is a fair deal implies getting to know when your original and new death dates are. Knowing when I will go is worth $20 million easily. So yes, I would probably take the deal. Story 132. If I knew I would have at least 10 years to enjoy said millions, yes, sure. In 10 years, my mother will probably pass, so she will not have the pain of seeing one of her children die. I get some time to enjoy some of the money, but not spend it all, so I can leave some for my nephews and nieces since I have no children of my own. Story 133, of course. Even if I were to die at this moment, my son would inherit everything and never have to do some of the difficult things I have done to pay rent. Story 134. Maybe. I am at an age where there is a slim, but not non-existent, chance it would kill me outright, but $20 million would set my children up for life and give them a lot of freedom, with plenty left over for my wife to marry some amazing young artist. Story 135. I would cut every remaining year except one. I would probably give up that year if I knew the money went to my wife. Story 136. If you spend 1/3 of your time working in 30 years, that is 10 years of working. Most likely, you will not make $20 million in 10 years, so of course. Story 137. The amount of life experience you could buy is worth probably more than 10 years. Spend some of that money on Brian Johnson's methods to help slow the aging process. Story 138. This is a clear choice for anyone who understands work and income-producing time. Would you rather have a job and spend 15% of your time with your family for 40 years, or spend 100% of your time with your family for 40 years when you have money? Story 139. My grandmother slowly deteriorated over her last 10 years with an agonizing battle with dementia and Alzheimer's disease. I view this as a win-win if that is my future. Story 140. Can I give $20 million for a guaranteed 10 more years? More importantly, will they accept a check? Story 141. No, not unless I had some guarantee that I would live until at least 75 originally. Story 142. With $20 million, I would be able to afford higher quality food and healthcare, avoid the stress of work, and probably extend my natural lifespan to make up for the 10 years I spent to achieve it. Story 143. Yes, it would set my children up for life. 10 years of my life is a great deal if it improves all of theirs. I would never tell them. Story 144. No, I am 65. Most of my family lived to around 75. The math does not look good on this one. Story 145. Can I take them out of the middle? Like I died but I got better. Story 146. I believe that with my high level of income and advances in modern medical science, I could live to 230 or 240 years. Story 147. That's a no-brainer. The last 10 years have been difficult. With $20 million, I can retire and enjoy the next 30 to 40 years. I could conservatively invest it in bonds or certificates of deposit and still have $1 million per year to live on indefinitely. Story 148. I definitely would. The real question is how much money it would take to be willing to give up 10 years. It has to be retirement, never working again money. For me and my wife, I can't sit home being retired for decades while she works. I think $10 million does that. $5 million probably does, assuming I invest wisely and don't spend it on something unwise. $1 million doesn't buy me 30 years of retirement living the lifestyle my wife and I want. Story 149. Yes. That would be significantly more of a financial benefit than it would be a negative impact on my life, and I could use that to build the foundation for the rest of my life. Story 150. Yes, provided that if it turned out I had less than 10 years left and would therefore pass away once I made the agreement, I could choose who the money went to. A long life will do me no good. Things will just get harder, but some good years would definitely be worth a lot to me. $20 million could buy me some good years and greatly help some people I care about. Story 151. In a heartbeat. It would allow me to truly live in my remaining years. Story 152. Yes, easy. $20 million could have bought those 10 years ago because I could afford good medical care. I get to do as I please for the rest of my life with no stress. Story 153. 10 years of my life expectancy now or 10 years of my life expectancy after I am a multimillionaire. Being able to afford rest, proper healthy prevention and intervention before minor issues become major life limiters has to add at least a decade or two to life expectancy. Not having to work unless I want to is going to be a gain of 10 years on its own. Story 154. The thought of being able to ensure my children have a little extra when I am gone is enough for me. I will sign up. Story 155. Not going to make $20 million working for 10 years, so absolutely yes. Could literally retire tomorrow and retire more than 30 years early. Story 156. I am 47. The average life expectancy is approximately 77.5, so a decade less means I would die at approximately 67. I would have about 1 million per year. I could invest that money into the stock market to be even more well off in my shortened life. Story 157. Unless I know my current lifespan, probably not. The worst case scenario is I am dying in 10 years or less, so if I cut off my life, I will be dead today or tomorrow, not being able to spend anything. Story 158. Yes. Every year I have left with 20 million will be better than every year I have left without 20 million. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.